weren't isolated. That's the part people get wrong. You had a family. You had a house. You had people around you at dinner, in the car, in the living room. The chairs were full. The house was occupied. And you were still alone, not physically alone, emotionally alone. Surrounded by people, but not accompanied by any of them. Present in the room, but absent from anyone's attention. Visible, but unseen. And the particular cruelty of this kind of aloneness is that it's harder to name than isolation. Because how do you explain being lonely in a full house? How do you grieve companionship you technically had? This is the companion void, not the absence of people, the absence of presence. Growing up with others around you, but no one truly with you. No one who tracked your inner world. No one who noticed when you went quiet. No one whose attention said, "I see you, and what's happening inside you matters to me." In this video, we're looking at 10 habits that reveal the companion void is still running. And for each one, we'll trace the root, the childhood aloneness that installed it, and the echo, the adult behavior it produces. Because you weren't isolated, you were surrounded, and you were still alone. That's worse. Number 1, solitude is your safe space. Loneliness is your nightmare, and they're not the same thing. Root, you learned aloneness as the default state. In the full house, nobody tracked you emotionally, so you adapted. You built a world inside yourself that didn't depend on anyone showing up. You became self-contained, self-entertaining, self-soothing, and it worked. Echo, solitude feels safe because you control it. But the moment you want connection and can't find it, the moment the aloneness stops being chosen and starts being imposed, the void opens. And the void isn't just current loneliness, it's the original loneliness, the one from the full house, the one where wanting to be seen and not being seen happened every day, in every room, for years. The terror isn't about being alone now. It's about remembering what it felt like to be alone then. Number 2, something is wrong and nobody around you knows. Not because you're hiding, because sharing never occurs to you as an option. Root, nobody asked. In the full house, your inner world was not a topic. Nobody said, "How are you feeling?" Nobody noticed the shift. The child learned, my internal experience is not visible to others. And making it visible is not an available action. Sharing was never modeled, never invited, never rewarded. Echo, you carry everything alone. Not heroically, habitually. The thought of telling someone you're struggling feels as foreign as speaking a language you were never taught. And when someone does ask, you deflect, not because you don't want to share. Because the neural pathway for sharing was never built. The road from I'm in pain to I'll tell someone doesn't exist in your system. It was never constructed. Number 3, you're at a gathering of people who know you, who like you, who invited you, and you feel like you're watching through glass. Root, you were inside the house but outside the family, physically included, emotionally excluded. You sat at the table, but nobody turned to you. You were in the photo, but not in the conversation. The inclusion was structural, not felt. And the child learned, being near people is not the same as being with people. Echo, proximity doesn't produce belonging. You can be at the center of a group and feel peripheral. You can be loved and feel unaccompanied. Because belonging isn't about location. It's about being received. And if you were never received as a child, never truly taken in, tracked, accompanied, then no amount of proximity in adulthood fills the gap. You're in the room, but the glass from childhood is still between you and everyone in it. And the loneliest version of this, you can see other people belonging. You can see them inside the warmth of the group, receiving each other, being received. And you know the warmth is also offered to you, but the glass makes it arrive muted, like love through a wall, present but not felt. And you smile and participate, and nobody knows you're on the other side of something invisible. Number 4, you organize, you plan, you solve, you fix. Not because the situation demands it, because usefulness is the only way you know how to exist in a group. Root. Usefulness was the only connection currency available. The child who was emotionally invisible discovered that doing things made them visible. If you were helpful, people noticed. If you solved a problem, you existed for a moment. The connection was transactional, but it was the only connection on offer. Echo. You can't just be in a group. You have to function in it. Be the one who brings the food, makes the plan, handles the logistics. Because the moment you stop functioning, the old equation activates. Without usefulness, you disappear. And the fear isn't irrational, it's a memory. In the Full House, the child who stopped being useful stopped being seen. The over-functioning is not ambition. It's an antidote to invisibility. Number 5. The sign that confuses everyone who hasn't lived it. You're lonelier with someone than without them. Root. Being alone with people is lonelier than being alone. In the Full House, the aloneness had an audience. You could see the people who weren't seeing you. The proximity made the absence sharper. Being alone in your room was tolerable. Being alone at the dinner table was devastating. Echo. The companion void is loudest in close relationships. Lying next to someone who doesn't ask how you are. Sitting across from someone who talks but doesn't connect. The physical closeness highlights the emotional gap, and the gap is where the original wound lives. This is why some people feel most alone in their relationships. Not because the partner is unkind, but because the proximity activates the old template, surrounded but unaccompanied. The echo of the Full House, playing in the adult bedroom. And the confusion this creates is particular. You think the relationship is the problem. If only they paid more attention. If only they asked more questions. But the void preceded the relationship. The relationship didn't create the loneliness. It activated the original one. The partner is sleeping beside a wound they didn't make and can't see. Number 6. You know you need help. You know help exists, and the request dies somewhere between your chest and your mouth. Root. Nobody was available, not absent, unavailable. The adults were there, but their attention was elsewhere, on their own pain, on the other children, on the crisis, on the functioning of the household. Help existed in theory. In practice, the child's needs were never the thing that summoned it. Echo. Asking for help feels like an imposition. Not because you're proud, because the system learned that requests go unanswered, and unanswered requests are more painful than unasked ones. At least if you don't ask, you can pretend the help would have come if you'd requested it. Asking and receiving nothing removes even that fiction. So you carry, alone, again. Number 7. You talk to yourself. You process alone. You are your own confidant, your own counselor, your own companion. Root. You had to be. Nobody else was available for the role. The child who was emotionally alone didn't wait for someone to show up. They turned inward and built a relationship with themselves that served every function a companion was supposed to serve. And the relationship worked. It was consistent. It was available. It never left. Echo. Self-reliance became the only reliable relationship. And the word reliable is doing heavy work here. You trust yourself because no one else was trustworthy. Not because they were malicious, because they were absent. And the self-friendship, while functional, has a cost. It makes letting others in feel unnecessary. Why would you need someone else when you've been handling everything alone for decades? The self-reliance that saved you in childhood becomes the wall that keeps people out in adulthood. And the wall doesn't look like a wall. It looks like competence, like independence, like having everything handled. People admire it. They say, "I wish I were as self-sufficient as you." They don't know that the self-sufficiency is a scar, not a skill, a scar that formed over the place where companionship was supposed to be. Number 8. You're at the gathering, and at some point you're just gone, eyes open, smile on, internally departed. Root. Being physically present but emotionally absent was the family's operating mode. People were in the room, souls were elsewhere. The child learned that presence is a physical fact, not an emotional one. And the child's body learned to vacate before the loneliness of being surrounded but alone could fully register. The checking out is preemptive. If I leave before the emptiness lands, it can't hurt me. Echo. Your body exits social situations before your mind decides to. You don't choose to check out. You notice you already have. And by the time you're back, the conversation has moved on, and you're once again in the room but not in the group. The departure is the body's memory of a household where being present was painful and being absent was safer. Number 9. The person who gives you the least attention gets the most of yours. Root. Emotional unavailability was the only love template installed. The child didn't grow up seeing what emotional presence looks like. They grew up seeing what emotional absence looks like. And the absence came from the people they loved most. So the nervous system filed. Love equals someone who is near but not present. Love equals effort without reciprocation. Love equals wanting someone who doesn't fully turn toward you. Echo. You recreate the companion void in every adult relationship, not because you're masochistic, because the void is the only shape your heart recognizes as love. Someone emotionally available feels unfamiliar. Someone who gives freely feels suspicious. Someone who is genuinely present feels wrong. Because love wasn't supposed to feel like being seen. It was supposed to feel like reaching for someone who isn't quite there. Number 10. The sign underneath all the others. Someone offers to be there for you, and you genuinely don't know what that means. Root. You never received it, not in a form you could recognize. The full house may have provided food, shelter, routine, but emotional support, someone sitting with your feeling, someone mirroring your experience, someone making you feel less alone inside your own internal world, was never part of the offering. You can't miss what you never had, but you can feel the shape of its absence everywhere. Echo. You can't ask for what you can't imagine. When someone says, "What do you need?" you freeze. Not because you have no needs, but because you have no template for what receiving support looks like. You've seen it in movies. You've watched other people receive it. But the experience of being emotionally supported is theoretical for you. And the gap between knowing it exists and knowing what it feels like is the companion void in its purest form. You know companionship is real. You just don't know what it feels like from the inside. And this is perhaps the most quietly devastating sentence in the companion void. You can describe what you've never experienced. You know the words, you've studied the concept, you've watched it from the outside your entire life. But the felt sense, the body-level experience of being emotionally held, is a blank space where the knowledge should have been experiential and is only theoretical. If you recognize the companion void in these 10 habits, here's what the void never told you. The aloneness was not a reflection of your worth. It was a reflection of their capacity. The people in the full house weren't withholding because you didn't deserve presence. They were withholding because they didn't have it to give. Their absence was about their limitations, not your lovability. And the habits you built around the void, the self-reliance, the silence, the overfunctioning, the checking out, those were brilliant adaptations. They kept you intact in a system that offered proximity without presence. But you're not in that system anymore. You're allowed to be accompanied now. Not because you've earned it, because you always deserved it. And the first time someone truly sits with you, truly sees your inner world and stays, the void won't disappear. But it will get a little quieter. Because companionship doesn't fix the wound. It just proves the wound was never the truth. At Inner Lens, we see the aloneness nobody else noticed. If this one resonated, the next video follows a different thread from the same family system. The quiet signs you're stuck in survival mode. It's right here,